What could we learn about the future of college football from what World Wrestling Entertainment just did with WrestleMania? Most of you, some of you probably aren't aware of what just happened. Obviously, we've got coronavirus to deal with. And over the last month and a half, how long's it been, Colin? We've seen college football grind to a halt. NCAA tournament was stopped dead in its tracks. Masters had to be postponed, which I think was a very good idea. I'll tell you why as it relates to this in just a second. And so everything stopped except for pro wrestling. And Vince McMahon had a decision to make. His Super Bowl is every late March, early April. It's called WrestleMania. I used to watch it every single year. I'm not a fan of the current product, but a lot of you are. And so he had a decision to make. They had WrestleMania scheduled for April 5th in Raymond James Stadium in Tampa, Florida. They sell it out every year, no matter where they are. They could get 100,000 people at this event if they wanted to. So they probably had conservatively 60,000 tickets sold to this event. And they had to move it, but they didn't cancel it. They moved it from a big football stadium into their performance center. See, once they bought up all the territories, there were no more minor leagues for wrestling, so they had to create their own minor league. And they opened up a developmental territory of their own down in Orlando. They got a big performance center there, and they got this small arena where they can let the talent do simulated stuff like they're eventually going to do in the big league. So they took that little arena and held WrestleMania in it with no fans. They did it over 2 nights. This was this past weekend. I thought it was a horrendous idea. I thought it was a terrible idea. Let me tell you how wrong I was. They ended up generating, at last check, close to 1 billion views across all platforms. Guys, there are only about 7.5 billion people on the planet, and about 1 billion views were netted across all digital platforms for WrestleMania in an empty arena. What does this have to do with college football? Well, first, let me tell you, I thought they should have gone the way of the Masters. I thought they should have postponed and moved the event to later in the year. For having your big crowd and your spectacle and your showcase of the immortals, as they call it, you just would have had it a little bit later. Well, that's not what McMahon wanted to do because, in his words, I think he was quoted as saying, everybody else was walking one way. We were going to be the one tent pole that stayed, and that's all well and good. I mean, the guy knows a lot more about his business than I do, and he knows his audience a lot better than I do, apparently, because I thought it was terrible. But I'm not his audience anymore. I don't watch anymore. When I log onto his network, I watch stuff from 1997. I don't watch stuff from 2020. So, point being, crisis forced innovation for them. Now, what I found to be abhorrent, apparently a lot of you loved. They went all kinds of different ways with this, what they turned into an opportunity. They included cinematography. They had a couple of matches that were shot like movies. Undertaker was in one of them. They had a couple of cinematography-based action movies that were matches, which makes no sense to me. But again, I don't have to get it if his audience gets it. And what happened was, that was not in the game plan 2 months ago. A lot of what they did, a talent's ability to work without a crowd that they've been able to lean on as a crutch their entire careers, and all of a sudden it's not there. Some people drowned and some people soared. And you found out a lot about your talent roster, but you also had forced innovation, which is exactly what's happening in college football right now. You don't realize it. Because right now, we're not past this in college football. And there are a lot of staffs that are, well, every staff is sitting at home, and there is no game plan. Even, I think, the worst of contingency plans, I don't think many of these staffs ever had contingency for, well, what happens when there's a global pandemic and we just don't have spring and we don't do anything and we just have to sit home. But yet everyone's having to learn on the fly. My point is, Alabama's doing it the best way Alabama knows how. Arizona State's doing it the best way Arizona State knows how. When we get to the fall, you're going to see somebody figured it out. And it may not be who you expect, but someone was innovative. Someone created new ways to do for their program what spring ball would normally do. You're without spring. Whatever development, whatever install and implementation of new systems you would have had, you don't have it. But yet, the regular season's still going to arrive, guys. I'm telling you, I would bet every dollar I have we're going to have college football in 2020. I tweeted that out Monday. Some people laughed. Some people agreed. In fact, a lot of people agreed. Well, lo and behold, ESPN's Adam Schefter today. He's a little bit more reputable. I will grant you that. Got a few more sources in the back pocket. Said the overwhelming thought among college football power brokers is that there will be a season this fall. Season's going to arrive. If you didn't get it figured out in the time of crisis, you're going to be exposed. Now, here's what we don't know yet. All the stuff with WrestleMania has already happened. We can look in our rearview mirror and see that. Who figured out a way? Who figured out a way to simulate installing? Who figured out a way to, using Zoom teleconferences, accomplish with a quarterback and a new offensive coordinator what previously you would have been on a football field doing? And also, how are the lingering effects of the innovation that was forced through crisis going to bleed into the future of college football? Here's one that I think a lot of you in the business world are asking. See, a lot of people in our industry, in the media industry, have understood for a while, we don't physically need to be in an office. With the advancements in technology, a lot of other people, it's not exclusive to ours. I've just worked in this industry, so I know it a lot more. People have said for a long time, I understand having the physical workspace, and I understand that there are, circumstances that require us to be together, but man, we could really make a lot of this happen from home. Well, here at 24/7 Sports, we've made a lot of stuff happen from home. In fact, in a lot of ways, we haven't skipped a beat as a company. A lot of our internals have looked even better than we thought they would have looked if everything was normal. And so, how does that apply to college football? What do you see that you're able to do without physically being in the office and physically being around your players that you can translate to the future even when things go back to quote-unquote normal? Now, I'll tell you one that's been expressed to me by a few people. I was talking to a Power 5 head coach the other night and asked kind of a derivative of this question. And the one piece of feedback I got overwhelmingly is he said, we were in the office too much. I thought it was a requirement. And the main reason that this coach thought it was a requirement was just that's the way they'd always done it. And he knows that that's roughly the amount of hours the competition spends in the office. Therefore, if we're not in the office that much, we're falling behind. Well, maybe there are ways to get creative. Dabo Swinney's already been doing this now. They don't work 120 hours a week at Clemson. They don't work in the office 120 hours a week. I think a lot more staffs on the back end of this will find that, it turns out we were okay. And it turns out a lot of the stuff that we still need to do can be accomplished while you're home with the family. Now, I know a lot of folks are going to go right back to doing it the way that they always did. I'm just telling you, from installs and implementation to the way strength and conditioning works. Maybe, for example, you love the fluidity and flexibility of your players this fall, even when they have not lifted heavy, like maybe previously your strength and conditioning program would have had them lifting. Maybe you find out you had some things a little bit backwards. Maybe a lot of the stretch and stride and band work and just overall calisthenic and high-intensity interval training work that are being done right now, maybe that better prepares you for a football season than how many times you can squat 405. Not that there isn't a lot of requirement for power in this sport. Please don't get me wrong. I stand on the sidelines every Saturday. I know what my eyeballs tell me, but I also know that this time next year, a lot of guys that lead programs are going to be doing things that are no longer necessities simply because they found a better way in a time of crisis. Just like Vince McMahon just found a better way somehow in a time of crisis than he would have if he held WrestleMania in a football stadium. And that is how WrestleMania applies to college football right now.